Hello everyone. I'm back today with part 2 of the boilerplate clauses series in contract drafting. Now, I am adopting a new method today wherein I would be drafting clauses on the go, and I'll be explaining to you the rationale behind each draft. Now, the first clause which I would be dealing with here is severability. So, imagine that you have a piece of cake, or maybe a 1 pound of entire cake, and a particular portion of that cake goes bad, and you have to throw out the entire cake because you cannot sever that particular piece of cake from the entire cake. Now, won't you feel bad? Imagine if there was something which actually said that no, you can remove that particular part of the cake and still eat the rest of it. That's exactly what severability aims to achieve. Severability severs that part of a contract which becomes invalid and still lets the rest of the contract exist. There is a huge exception to this, that only if this particular clause or part of the agreement which has become invalid does not defeat the purpose of someone entering into this agreement. If it doesn't affect the purpose of the agreement, then you can sever this bit and the rest of the agreement will still continue. Now, I shall draft the severability clause here. So, if any clause or part of this agreement becomes or is rendered invalid. Now, the first thing which we need to focus here is any clause or part. Now, the term denotes a very broad scope. So what you need to put forth here is that if any part of the agreement or any clause becomes invalid. Now, by invalid, you could include anything like illegal or unlawful or void, etc. Therefore, instead of writing those specific terms, I personally prefer writing something like invalid, which would actually encompass everything else in its ambit. If you want, you can still include here is rendered invalid, such as, and then you can say becomes unlawful or illegal, etc. In whole or in part. Now, there could be especially if you're talking about a particular part of the agreement, which could maybe a particular condition which has been mentioned becomes invalid. So now, do you render the entire clause invalid for it? That's why in whole or in part is important. You need to mention the particular bit which has become invalid. It could also completely become illegal, or a part of it is illegal. So therefore, the in whole or in part is essential to be mentioned here. Then it shall not affect the validity of the entire agreement. That's the operative part of this clause. So you start off with a broad scope of the particular clause, and then you go on to the effect which says that even if this any part or clause becomes invalid, it is not going to affect the validity of the entire agreement. Now, this clause or part of the agreement is going to be severed and treated as not being part of the original agreement. So the entire agreement which exists after the severance of this particular clause or part can continue as it is, thinking that this particular clause was not a part of the agreement to begin with. So the severability clause helps you when a particular part of your agreement or a particular clause becomes either illegal or unlawful or invalid in any particular way. And then the other party cannot claim that now the agreement doesn't stand because this particular clause is illegal, hence the entire agreement would be illegal. If they claim this, then severability comes to your rescue. Now, the second thing which we should be talking about is, so there's governing law and there's dispute resolution. I'm going to handle dispute resolution first and then move on to governing law because the two of them are interconnected. Now, dispute resolution. So basically the first thing which you need to keep in mind here is the mode of dispute resolution. So you can settle your disputes through litigation, through arbitration, mediation, etc. Now, typically arbitration, given the fact that it gives a lot of freedom to the parties to decide, like, the way the things are going to be done. Also, it's comparatively faster than litigation. Arbitration is generally the most preferred mode of dispute resolution and agreements. So, under dispute resolution, if you want to draft a particular clause and put arbitration as the mode of dispute resolution, there are 3-4 things that you need to keep in mind. Now, I'll draft the clause and then I'll explain the same. Now, you will see it starts with any disputes arising from this agreement or in connection therewith. So this phrase is used to append this clause because it's going to increase the scope of dispute resolution. So it means any disputes which are arising directly from the agreement or are connected to the same. So there could be any a secondary dispute arising from the agreement or a remote dispute arising from the agreement can also be submitted to arbitration here. Now, again, both the parties would agree to submit the dispute to arbitration, and hence the arbitration clause would stand valid. Now, the forum for the arbitration would be SIAC. So, for example, both the parties would submit their dispute for arbitration before SIAC. Now, the other thing which you need to keep in mind is what is the venue of the arbitration, what would the arbitral panel be, and what language would the arbitration proceedings be conducted. So as written here, the venue is Singapore. The proceedings are going to be conducted by a sole arbitrator, and he will be decided based on mutual consent by both the parties. And the arbitration proceedings shall be conducted in English. So these are a few things which you need to keep in mind when you are drafting an arbitration or a dispute resolution clause wherein the mode is arbitration. So here most of it basically depends upon your client's will and intentions. So before you actually build in something in the dispute resolution clause, makes sense for you to go ask your client, what do you think is the most beneficial thing to you? Explain to them why arbitration is better, what is the pros and cons of both litigation, arbitration, mediation, etc. Let them choose what they think is the best for them. In terms of venues, Singapore and New York are considered to be neutral venues, and they're considered to be good venues for arbitration. So explain to your client the entire legal scenario and what, according to you, would be the best dispute resolution method, and then let them take the call. Now, modification. So modification is basically bringing about a change in the agreement. It's like an amendment clause, you can say. Now, amendment has to be subject to the consent of both the parties. So therefore, it can be couched in a negative language or in a positive language. So let me just draft this for you. Now, typically a blanket ban is imposed on modification of an agreement until and unless, so the exception window is there, that both the parties consent to the said modification. The qualification of this consent being in writing is introduced so as to evade any kind of confusion regarding this consent. For example, if A and B enter into an agreement, now later on A wants to modify the agreement. He approaches B and he says that I want to modify this particular clause. B is like, okay, fine, we will see. A thinks that's consent. A goes ahead, modifies the contract. He thinks the contract has been modified and he proceeds based on that understanding. B, on the other hand, is still sticking to the original contract. So in case such confusions do not arise, that's why it's always better to make the consent in writing. Another thing which I haven't included here, which I think I will still discuss, is termination. Now, termination is a standard clause which is provided in all agreements. Now, termination generally depends upon the will of the parties. You can have termination simpliciter, that is without any reason, and both the parties can terminate the contract by giving a stipulated notice period. You can have termination for breach or default, wherein typically a cure period or a small window of period is given to the breaching party to cure the wrongdoing that they have done. If they are still not able to cure that, then the party who is suffering can actually terminate the contract by giving either no notice or a very small, maybe a 4, 5 days or 7 days notice. So in this clause, I'll just draft this and we'll discuss that after that. So the first thing is now the termination clause can either be one-sided or it can be mutual. So I am drafting a mutual clause here because typically both the parties should have the right to terminate. And if you go into a negotiation with a one-sided mutual clause, there's very little ground on which you can defend the same. So yeah, now this right should be given to both the parties. So either party can terminate this agreement. Upon giving, I'm writing 30 days as a very standard termination notice period. So 30 days prior written notice. Now, a notice in writing is important for termination purposes because, as I said, anything and everything done orally may cause confusion. And termination being such a huge thing, a written notice should always be given. You can further add frills and frolics to it by saying that, even email would be considered to be a notice in writing, or maybe and you can say also the word prior here. So if someone writes, for example, if you're drafting this clause and you said upon giving 30 days written notice, now you're not saying it's an advance notice. You are saying it's a 30 days notice. So the person may end up giving this notice after, they've already terminated the contract and say, hey, you did not write advance or prior. So that's why the word prior here is extremely important. So that is termination simpliciter for you. The other thing would be now, Yeah. So this is termination for breach. Now, again, this is a right which should be given to either party. A lot of times what happens is if it's a supply agreement, then like, you know, the consumer would be like, why would the supplier require a termination for breach? What is the breach we can do? So these are all negotiating terms. Now, if any of the parties breaches obligations contained, then either you can terminate the agreement immediately or you can give them a cure period. For example, in this clause, I've written 7-day cure period where they can remedy the breach. Now, if they're not able to remedy the breach within 7 days, then the suffering party can terminate the agreement with immediate effect from the end of the cure period. That means that the moment those 7 days get over, I can say, no, you haven't remedied your breach, and I have the right to terminate the agreement under uh, the termination clause. So these are the two modes by which you can actually terminate the agreement. Now, there are certain other requirements as well in the termination clause, which I would be talking about in my subsequent video, along with some more clauses. Please let me know if this mode of drafting clauses on the go and explaining them is better for you in terms of learning. If yes, then going on, maybe I'll adopt this approach only. Hopefully you liked the video and you had a learning experience. Please let me know any feedback, positive or negative. Any further help that you require, please do contact me, maybe on LinkedIn. You can also leave a comment here in case you have a doubt. Thank you. Have a safe day. Stay safe, stay home.